Everyone, and welcome to Shop Talk. This is episode 14. I am Whitney, and I am one of the co-hosts of this delightful monthly conversation about all things selling vintage. So today we have a very special guest coming on. Her name is Sarah Durst. We're going to get her on. If you are watching the YouTube replay, thank you so much for being here. So just so you know, we may be responding to comments and stuff that we see in the stream that you won't see on your screen, but you will still really enjoy this conversation. So as soon as we get our friends on here, we will, just so you guys know how this works, we're going to bring Nicole on. And Nicole and Sarah, we will go ahead and if you guys request to join. Now, when you guys join the live, for some reason, I see a lot of you tapping request to join. For some reason, Instagram always has that pop up. Just ignore it because that is only if you actually want to come onto the live and be on video. So we're just going to be having Nicole and Sarah for that. And I am going to see to show up. Oh, hold on.
Hi.
Hello. Hello, you made it. All right. There's always that moment of like, oh, is Instagram going to work for us? Okay. Oh, and I see Sarah. So Sarah, go ahead and hit request to join, and then we'll get started. So just to orient you guys a little bit, this is very interactive. We love to hear your questions. The best place to put questions is down in the question mark box right there. If you tap that, the question will stay there. If it's in a comment stream, you might miss it. So Nicole is kind of the moderator, as well as being in the conversation, and just kind of helps keep track of all that. And then we will get Sarah on here. It should pop up in just a minute. Dun, dun. All right, and type in the comments and tell us where you guys are watching from. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Oh, I am so excited. This is like conversation with two of my favorite people. So I'm like psyched. This is going to be such a great morning. I know. Okay, a few more housekeeping things. So if you guys can't be here for the whole live stream, we will be saving the replay as a real video to our Instagram profiles. But the best place to watch this is actually on YouTube. So if you type YouTube, and I'm going to put a little comment in there. If you comment YouTube below, all one word, no space, I will automatically DM you a link. Oh man, Lydia's in here from North Carolina. Comment YouTube below. You'll get a link in your DMs to the replay on YouTube. So you get link replay. Okay. And then if you guys make sure you tap up here, you should be able to follow all of us because you definitely will want to be following along. We do Shop Talk once a month. Make sure that YouTube is spelled out just like I have in the pinned comments. So, okay, are we ready to get started?
Yes.
Right.
So.
Yes. Okay. So, Sarah, most of you probably know me. I'm Whitney from Kansas City. Nicole is my co-host from New Jersey, Vintage Haven Shop. And today we have Sarah Durst from Alabama. And Sarah, will you just like introduce yourself and tell us where you live, what you do, and then we're going to dive into the conversation.
Yes, so I live in Talladega, and it is Talladega. It is not Talladega. It is not any pronunciation. But if you're going to say Talladega, it's Talladega with like an I. And that's Alabama. Yes, the race is this weekend. So we've got, like 100, I don't know if it's that many, maybe like 50 or 60,000, descending on our little tiny town. But I live here. I am a pastor's wife. I make clothing. So I sew quilt coats. I make other clothing, like I'm wearing my brand, repping the brand. I sell antique quilts on occasion. And I'm a professor. I'm an English professor at a local university as well. So I just do a lot of those. I do a lot of things, but the main thing I'm here on Instagram for is my shop, Potter's Daughter. And yeah, that's it.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah.
That's a
But
lot.
you have not always, it's a lot. Yeah.
It is. I know.
Yes. So, but you have not always been a maker because you actually got
Oh,
into the vintage world in a different way. So can
I
you
did.
like take us back to the origin story?
Take the genesis. Okay, so this would have been probably 2014. So about 10 years ago. It was 10, almost 11 years ago. And I started selling vintage and antique clothing. My handle at the time was Picker's Wife. My husband was sorry, my husband just got home, so forgive. But so I started in 2014. My husband was doing some antique picking, estate clean out, which he still does. And he just started finding all of these treasure troves, so to speak, of antique, vintage and antique clothing. And there was a market for it, you know. And at the time in 2014, I didn't have a website. I didn't want to have a website. I believe that a couple years after that, I started selling on Etsy briefly for like a hot second. But then I was always like, I don't want them to take my money. And so I actually started selling on Instagram in 2014, 2015. It gets a little fuzzy, you know, around then. And I only sold on Instagram. So all of my sales were direct to customer through people. Venmo wasn't around at the time. I think it was PayPal primarily. So people would PayPal me. I would do live sales of antique clothing and other like antique items, some jewelry a little bit. And yeah, and so I did that for several years. You know, I did all my own product marketing. I did all of my own pictures. Like I did everything myself. At the time, I was also working full time. I was a teacher at the time and working on my PhD, which I did finish, and had a family. My kids at the time were young. So when I began, my kids were, you know, like 3 and I don't even remember what was 2014. They would have been like 5 or 6, you know, something to that effect. And so, yeah, so I started doing the antique clothing at the time. And then as it turns out, my husband, while he was, you know, doing these picks and things, he began to bring home quilts and, you know, just, which I've loved for, you know, ever. I mean, I've always admired their beauty. And so but he started bringing them home. He was like, you know, there's a storage locker and I'm like, all these quilts, like, what are we going to do with them? So that I know. Yeah. Kind of began to shift my attention just because I began to love it. Yes, go.
Is this all in Alabama? When did you guys move down to Alabama?
No, I'm sorry. All of this began in Illinois. When we lived in Illinois,
okay.
We've only been in Alabama. Yeah, we've only been in Alabama since 2019.
That's what I thought. Okay. Because quilts in Illinois are different from quilts in Alabama.
They are.
If you know, you know.
Very different regionally. Yeah, they're just a different style of quilts. Yeah. So anyway, so this is in Illinois, and sorry, where was I at? Oh, sorry. So the quilts, right? No, it's okay. It's totally fine. It's totally fine. We should just roll with it. Okay. So when he started bringing all these coats home, and there was, at the time, I was following lots of different antique clothing, other dealers, things like that. And there's an account, it's called Strange Desires. And they posted a picture, and that haunts me to this day. To this day. It was a quilt. It was a quilt coat that was made in probably the 20s out of an antique house quilt coat. And I missed buying it by like seconds. And I still have a picture of it on my phone. I still look at it. And so I kind of just started like connecting the dots. I was unfamiliar with like Ralph Lauren in the 80s had done this. I just didn't know about it, you know. So I've learned later, obviously, that quilt coats, quilt clothing, that kind of stuff has been around for ages. I mean, literally, historically speaking, clothing made from old quilts has been around for well over 100 years, if not 200 years. So people have been doing this for a long time. But at the time, I was just like, oh, this is amazing. And so that kind of began my transition. I've been very good with my hands. Like I'm crafty, crafty like a fox. And I was just like, I saw that and I like yearned for that coat. And I was like, I wonder if I could do that. I wonder if I could make one. And so I made one and posted about it online at the time. This probably would have been 2017, 2018. And then, yeah, that's true. I see somebody saying nothing is worse than the vintage we missed. It's so true. It's so true. And I did try to buy it. When you see something that you like, you're supposed to buy it. And I tried, and I just missed it. But yeah, so that was in about 2017 or so that I started to make the transition to sewing exclusively. Basically, at that time, I paused for about a year to finish my PhD. So I developed my own website at that time, did all of that, started selling exclusively online. We moved to Alabama. So I took some time off to like reorient myself to a new life. I paused my teaching and PhD. I finished my PhD, but I paused the career. And in 2019, after the start of the pandemic, I linked up with a shop called Folkling. And well, because I had a dream, this was so crazy. I literally had a dream that I was sewing quilt coats, and the gal's name who runs Folkling is Leanie, and that she was taking the pictures. So I dreamed this dream, and that we were not connected really closely online at all. But I reached out to her and was like, hey, here's a wild and crazy idea. And so she was like, yes. So we started that in the fall of 2019, dropped our first launch in 2019, and it just took off. I mean, and I haven't stopped that since. So I was doing the quilt coats, clothing made from quilt toppers, and I branched out a little bit into dead stock fabrics, and I did that exclusively. That was my only source of income. My husband worked, obviously, but for me personally, I did that exclusively for 4 years. And then last spring, no, 2 springs ago, this is my second year as a professor, like a professorial job kind of literally fell in my lap. I mean, like, hey, do you want to do this? And I was like, yes. I just, that's the thing. It's like, I hope I'm very intuitive. And so, I rely a lot on like gut instincts, what feels right in the moment, downloads, if you will, about where I'm supposed to be, what I'm supposed to be doing. And that has served me very well. And so I've always been able to sort of like pivot when it's time to pivot. And so that's, sorry if that's long, but that's really the genesis of kind of how I am where I am now.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it and I think we connected when you slid into my DMs when
probably like
in 2020
hey, wait,
when
you
I
have
first
quilts. You have
I know
quilts.
you were like, hey, I still remember the first topper. Isn't that funny how vintage selling works? I remember being pregnant. I remember the estate sale where I found that top, and I remember exactly like watching the transformation. What was so cool for me was I remember exactly the estate sale I got it from, and then watching the transformation of
nice.
getting it to you,
Nice.
and then you making this amazing. It was that iridescent Lone Star. Yeah. Yep. And seeing that, and I just had no idea that this was even possible to take a piece that could have been a quilt, also could have just, I mean, clearly had been sitting in someone's closet for who knows how long, months, years, and then turning it into a piece of wearable art. Like that whole process was just it was so cool to like be a part of that. So yeah. So I mean, you really talked a lot about how your business changed through different niches. How much, this is kind of a question, like perspective question, but like how much did your different seasons of family and professional life impact those changes that you have made to your business, right? Because I'm in a season of where my youngest is 3, my older 2 are in school, but there's also this like that tension of it's amazing to have my own business and be able to be home with my family, and there's limitations that come with it. Also, did you notice this?
I did see
I
that.
just really
That's little print that I made with the evil scrunchies. She's
oh my gosh, I know.
at the time.
And and also, can you tell us your motto? Like, this is a print I got from Sarah. Can you tell? Because I think your motto is such a great, like, honestly, should be like the whole saying for this entire episode.
Which motto? I think I've had.
Nothing is wasted.
That's right. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good grief. Now I'm like, of course I have my drawing a blank. My motto. I'm like, yeah.
Okay, well, I'll find it.
Possible. Nothing is wasted. Heed the dreams. Take the risk.
Take the risk. Redemption.
Yeah. Redemption is possible. So, okay, wait. Which two? You've given me 2 things to discuss.
Sorry, chicken or the egg? No. How has your family and professional life like really shaped? How have you been able to flex your business to fit that in different ways? If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we can talk about the motto. We'll do family and then motto.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Like, put a pen in that.
Squirrel. You know, like that's it's part of the season. You know, it gets worse when you get later because then it's like you're not distracted by anything. You just like lose it from your brain completely. Like there's no distraction. It's just gone. You're like, wait, what? Like, pardon me. So yes, my business has morphed. It's incredibly because of my family. So currently I have 2 daughters. One is 15 and one is 13. So they ironically, so they don't need me physically, meaning they can go to the bathroom themselves. Thank you. They can, get in their car seats by themselves. They can buckle, they can cook for themselves mostly. Like they're not going to starve if I'm working for a day. Like they can figure it out. So that currently allows me a lot more freedom, but the hard does not go away. It just changes. So they need me a lot more cognitively and emotionally now than they do physically. They're not looking to cuddle or me to take them. I don't have to watch them as much, but there are like really important conversations that I am having as I'm trying to help them to grow and to, grow up and manage all the things that happens in the lives of teenagers. The big decisions about college for my sophomore, or not yet, obviously, but like it's on the horizon. So while I don't need to be as physically present, I do have to be mentally present. And so I have to sort of manage. Running a business is really, a lot of it is a mental game. And, I have to make some decisions about where and how I can spend my time in my brain too. You know what I mean? So that really never changes. It just changes because I don't need a babysitter. You know what I mean? But I can't also work all the time because I have to be there with my kids. I have to take them places and do stuff, so it just changes. So like today they're at school. I have my Tuesdays and Thursdays off that I can work on shop things. When they were little, I didn't have a business. So when they were babies and like 1-2-year-olds, I think when I started in 2014, let's see, 2009, 10, 11, 12. So Ada would have been, it's my oldest. She would have been 6 and my youngest would have been 4. So they were like just kind of starting into school. I did have a babysitter, but I was also working full time. So I was spending my evenings, doing that. I was sourcing. My job was a little bit flexible because I was at a university at the time. So I could, on a Friday morning, like go to an estate sale real quick, to do that. But I was sourcing a lot in the evenings, on the weekends, buying. Again, I had a big network of dealers that I've always kind of tried to manage and work with. And I do that because time is limited and, resources are limited. So I've always kind of approached how I'm going to work smarter, not harder, obviously. So I really have always relied on other dealers pickers, just networks and connections of people to get me the things that I need to do my business, because I just never really have had the time, except for when I did it exclusively on its own for 4 years, to do that. So when I did the business online for 4 years, that was when we moved to Alabama, and I didn't have a job. The girls were a little bit older. We moved here, one was in 2nd grade, one was in 5th grade. And so that was really a good age in which, again, I don't need to be as physically present, but then they were at school all day. And so because I didn't have a job, I was able to really focus on doing that. And so I had that time. My husband's always worked and had a job. So that, I mean, I can't, I don't know what it would be like if it was just me. So that would definitely be hard, obviously. And so, but I was able to kind of throw myself into it for 4 years. And I did not, I could have, I really debated, a year and a half ago, I guess it would have been, yeah, whether I actually wanted to get to do the professor thing again. Like I didn't need it. You know what I'm saying? It was not like I didn't shift, but again, it's that sort of intuition, that kind of knowing, that I can really rely on, that guides me. And I was like, that's what I'm supposed to do. You know what I mean? So then I took that. And so it's been nice, professor jobs are flexible. So I have a little bit more free time where I'm on campus 3 days a week. And then I'm on campus 3 days a week. And then I have 2 days a week where I can work on business stuff. It keeps, every time I put my hand up, I guess it's going to.
I think it's,
is it, I don't know.
It's something like this that it's not doing it for me though. I don't know. Yeah. And so this is like,
it's different, like automation. So like if you do a heart, something happens. There's a lot of different things.
It's not working for me.
Yeah.
So, and I think this is so good because we have such a big mix of people in here. There's people who are working, well, like Nicole, you have a profession and you have this on the side. And there's always that question of, everyone comes at it differently.
Yeah.
Do I do this full time? Do I do both? So how did you know? And I feel like you had a catalyst of moving across the country.
Yeah.
Of doing, was that sort of like the thing that pushed you to
go
just focusing on your shop?
Yeah. For me, for us personally, yeah, it was a time of transition. It was a time we were moving across the country from Illinois to Alabama. The job, my husband was going to, was making more money than he had previously. And so it was kind of like like when you make a move like that, nobody really tells you what that's going to do to your children. I mean, you can kind of like anticipate everything, moving away from everything, yes, that's going to be hard. But what I found in my first 6 months here, I was pretty much exclusively like supporting my kids and like helping them learn this sort of new culture, new way of living, new everything. And so a lot of my attention was really on them, and focusing on them. And so at that point, then, once things began to settle, we had a pandemic. So, and I had applied for some teaching jobs in the area, but it is hard when you don't know anyone. I mean, and that's not to say that it's different in Illinois. I mean, really, connections when in anything are important, and we just didn't have any. So I was faced with like, okay, I've tried to get a couple jobs, I haven't, but it all worked out because like the pandemic happened, and I was at home with my children for the last half or the last part of 2019. Alabama actually went back to school. We went back to school the next year, so we did not have a lot of the complications that people had in other places. My kids were in school in the fall of 2019. It was partial days. It was like 2 days and then 3 days. But anyway, so yeah, it was that opportunity that I decided to take the chance and like do that full time. And there, you mentioned like, there are so many people doing different things. There are benefits and drawbacks to everything. So I think one thing that, and I think I maybe had this idea in my head a little bit, that like the full-time gig was like the gig to have. Like that's what you wanted. That showed that you were like making it, that you were winning at the small business game of life. I just don't think that that's the case. And I think that at least it wasn't for me. It might be for somebody else, but like for me personally, there were aspects of running the business full time that I just simply didn't enjoy, and I was like, okay, well, if I don't work today, then I don't get paid, I don't get any money. And so there's a whole lot more pressure, both from a financial aspect and from a business aspect. We had to buy our own health insurance. My husband's job did not provide health insurance, so trying to find health. I mean, there's just, I could give you a laundry list of things about being, only responsible for your, being a small business owner. There's just complications. Not bad. And people, if that works for them, they should do it. But you have to weigh for yourself, like, where do I want to go? Where do I want to be? Why am I doing this business? And then, do I need to do it full time? Does it make me happier? Like, I don't know.
No, that's huge, because that's something that we've talked about, is that you're so right. It's kind of held up as this thing of, I know I've really made it if I can do this full time. And you did it for 4 years, and now you're transitioning back to part time. So how has you taking that professor job impacted your business? What have you had to change? Someone even asked, do you do all your own sewing for your clothes, which is a whole nother interesting topic.
So I primarily still do most of the sewing. Like I do the sewing of all of my coats, but I did have to get sewing help. So I do all my coats, and I do all my collars, which are the sheepskin shearling collars. And then I had to find, and let me just tell you, trying to find seamstresses is not easy. It's not easy. Sewing in so many ways is a lost art. And, so I've had to really, really work to try to find somebody, because you find somebody that sews and then they may not sew to the quality. And I'm a little bit of a perfectionist. So, I want what I'm putting out into the world to be really, really good. Something that's going to last and last and last. It's going to be something that you keep, a garment that you come back to over and over again. And, I just have high standards for that. And so finding somebody to meet those standards has been difficult. And it's also not cheap. Like I don't ship my clothes off overseas and then, to be made by these company, which would save me money. I mean, it really would. Like the way that they make clothing overseas is not good. Anyway, but so everything that I make, either I'm making it or I have a lady that I work with in California who makes the clothes for me. And she sews like some of the dead stock tops and things, because all that fabric comes in California. So it's easier to like ship it that way. And so she sews for me. I am actually looking for someone right now to help me with coats, simply because all of my work has kind of destroyed my neck. So there is a physical toll that creative making actually does take on your body, because it's a lot of like looking down, lifting. I mean, so, everyone be mindful of that. So it has taken its toll on my neck. And so it's not, I still do sew, but I'm like, okay, when I'm thinking long-term about this, I probably need some help. I need somebody to help me do this. So, especially if I'm, doing the professor thing, but even, I don't know. Yeah, obviously I don't know what would have happened, but I do think that had I stuck with this full time, and who knows, maybe in the future I'll go back to it full time. But even still, I'm going to need somebody to sew to help me sew, because I'm just looking kind of down the road at everything and thinking, all right, I really need to find somebody to help. So
yeah, and I think that's something that when you're having your own business, like we all need help. It doesn't matter if it is the childcare, the sourcing, the making. You know, that's I think a place that a lot of people get stuck where they want to grow, but they're afraid they can't afford to get help, or they're afraid they get overwhelmed with knowing who to help,
yeah,
you know, ask to help with. And so you really do get to a point where though you realize and some people have, we talked about this a little bit with another guest, and she was like, had to overcome her perfectionism, like just like you have to let go with
yeah,
sending stuff off to get sewn. It's like you're putting things in someone else's hand, and it's really hard when it's our business, it's our baby, it's your
yeah,
name on the label inside the clothing. But also, like, you get to a point where it's like the volume, there's a cap that each of us
yeah,
can do
yeah.
individually.
Yeah,
So
there is. And, you know, I've often thought, and it's just, you know, so could I hire an employee? I could, but there's also risks with that. You
yeah.
know, if you're hiring employees to work for you, I mean, there's all kinds, you have to do labor laws, you have to do new kinds of business insurance, new kinds of unemployment stuff, like different taxes. And that was actually something that I did not want to do. So it has never been a consider, and you have the responsibility of working your tail off so that they can eat and feed their family too. You know, so I actually never wanted to do that. I never wanted to have an employee. It was just not ever something, because it didn't serve my purposes of what I wanted my business to do. So, but I can contract labor, you know, and they're not employees. Like, so I can work with somebody, you know, who's like, I'll do the, I can sew for you. You know, if somebody's sewing for me, that's contract labor. So I'm not her, she don't work for me as like employee status. She helps me, I guess. And so I don't have to, I'm not responsible for having an actual employee. I just didn't want that. You know what I mean? This was not something I wanted ever.
Yeah,
I'm on
it's a lot.
the other end of that. So I work for an architect, but I'm like the contractor, I guess. I'm contracted out to help them. So I'm not necessarily their employee, but I do help them out. So I do see like a little bit as being on the other side, like the benefits for both sides. And I do think it's better. I definitely like this a lot better than having like a full-time employer though.
Yeah. 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 I think, I mean, it offers flexibility for people on the other end too. You know, I mean, that's, yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things that I think with all of this, it's like figuring out what to say yes to the right opportunities, but also how to say no. Especially one thing that I hear a lot from vintage sellers, whether it's small opportunities or big opportunities, is sort of this fear of letting people down, or fear of, I know Sarah's like, but what I really want people to have is the confidence of knowing when is a right decision to be like, this is what I need, and then when to say no, and how do you say that? How do you do that with confidence and grace, and still, because you've worked with some people, and then you've ended those partnerships, and which so talk us through that as much as you're comfortable.
Absolutely. So I think the first thing is that people have to be crystal clear about why they're doing their business. So what are your goals for your business? What is the purpose of you doing a business? Like, if all you want to do is just have a little extra spending money, then you don't need to go into business full time. If all you want to do is make the end of the month a little more cushiony, why are you worrying about like blowing it up? Just do that, you know? For me, so my business serves two purposes. The first is it is a creative outlet. to me, for me. I was not creatively fulfilled as an educator. I like to make things, like I'm always doing stuff. I made this pot. Like, I mean, I'm just one of those types of people. So the purpose of me having a business, even with the vintage clothing, was because I love the dressing up and the taking of the pictures. It was a creative outlet to me. And that was the first purpose that it served. It was always going to be a creative outlet. And the second was a financial decision of a very simple financial decision of, we just wanted to do some fun things, make the end of the month. For us, it was make the end of the month a little more cush. And that hasn't changed. Like, my business is a creative outlet for me, and it is a means to support my family in doing and having the type of life that is important to us, that allows us a little bit more flexibility and freedom to do our life. From another side of it, this business has always been an outlet of, I'm a Christian, I believe in God, and I just believe firmly that he gave me gifts and talents to use to glorify him and to serve other people. Now, of course, everyone's like, is it really serving other people to like give them? Yeah, I mean, you could have that discussion another time, but it is me doing what I believe that he'd called me to do. Like, and I do believe that I do have a creative talent, and I do believe I want to use it to serve him and to bring beauty and wonderful things to the world. I mean, so many people, it's more common now, but when I started back in 2017, I mean, so few people had like beautiful things that were made for them, one of a kind pieces that, were well tailored, well fit. I mean, that was just not something that was, people didn't have that. People did not know back. I mean, at least in the sphere that I was in, people like having something that was made for them, being able to commission a jacket and to choose, all the features. That was just not something that was accessible to the masses. And, you would have been paying like thousands of dollars to have stuff like that done. And I was just like, no, I can do that for cheaper. And I did. So, I mean, it's not, I know, I recognize my stuff is not inexpensive, but it's less expensive than some. So
yeah, it is.
Yeah.
We can say that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all of that has helped you it like gives you a framework for being able to say yes at the right times, but then also no, probably you say no more than you say yes.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I do say no a lot. I mean, I get not a lot, but I do get requests to do or to collaborate, and it's just, I have certain values and goals for my business. And if this collaboration or this project or this endeavor doesn't meet those goals and it adds stress, then it's going to be a no. And it's just a no, thank you. I mean, I don't know. I just personally have never struggled with letting people down or feeling like, and maybe some of that comes with age. I don't know. I'm 44 now, so I don't know if I can't say it comes with age. I think it must be how I was raised, because I've just never been, I'm not a people pleaser. Yeah. So, and I acknowledge that some people do struggle with that. So that honestly has just not ever been something. I've always been okay saying no. And no, that doesn't work for me, and that doesn't fit. But again, it's also because I'm laser focused on, I know what I want for my business. I know the purpose of my business. I don't work for my business. My business works for me. I created this business to do the things that I want to do. I'm not going to be so bogged down and mired in it that it controls me. I've never wanted to be in any job that I've ever had, because I have been in controlling jobs. I have had toxic work situations, and I'm not going to be my own worst boss. It's just not going to happen. So, yeah. So I've just always been able to be, like I said, laser focused on my goals and what my business is doing for me, and just to be like, does this align? No, it doesn't align. And so I'm not going to do that.
I
So,
think that's, oh man, that's so good. And I think you can use this whether it's a big opportunity or a small
mm-hmm.
one, because it's so, that's the hard part. I'm reading this book. I meant to get it. It's called Essentialism. And
Yeah.
it's just, yeah. Have you heard of it? I'm just like,
You've told me about
okay,
it.
problem. I know, because we've been chatting. I can't remember. Anyway, but it's just like essential, like you, it seems small, and oh yeah, sure, I'll do that. Yeah, sure, I'll do this small thing. I'll do this small live sale, and it just
Death by
piles on top
a
of you.
thousand cuts.
Yes. Or it's like, this is really great. You have a search. There's a picture, so it's like, I'll draw a picture. You hold on, I should have done this before. But basically, it's like you're trying to make progress in a million different directions, right? And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, I'll say yes to it. And so you just make like a millimeter every day. But then once you are laser focused and you're like, no, this is the direction I'm going in my business. This is what I want. This is what I want for my family. It becomes a lot easier to say no, because you're like, I'm not going to be wasting my time and effort on all these different things.
Yeah.
And it makes it so much easier. One of my favorite sayings is from Amy Poehler, you know, the comedian Amy Poehler, her memoir, whatever. She's like, we as women need to be able to say to each other, good for you, not for me.
Yeah.
Like that is like one of my mantras in life. Is like, we can say, hey, I'm so glad you're pursuing that opportunity. I'm so glad your business is going in that direction. I'm so glad you're making this choices for your family. It's not for me.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a judgment.
I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just saying that goes back to what we were saying earlier about like the idea that the business, full time in the business, is like the goal, or that's what we should all be aiming for. No, it isn't. Maybe for some of your friends online, but
yeah,
not for us.
But that might be, if your goal is financial independence, being your own boss. But if you have these goals, and that full-time job is the step to get to there, because that's basically what I am. I mean, I joke I run a full-time business on part-time hours because I still have kids at home. Like, but it's a means. It is not the end.
Yeah.
It's, you don't want to have another thing. I've been doing this emotional intelligence course, and she's like, you do not want miserable success to get to a point in your business.
Boss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where you sacrifice so much quality of life, relationships, your own mental and physical health, because you're trying to reach this summit that you think is really what you want, and you get there and you're like, I'm miserable. I'm more successful than I've ever been, and I'm completely miserable.
What did they used to say? Mo money, mo problems. I mean, you know, really. I mean, not really, but
really.
Not there's anything wrong with money and financial success and financial freedom if you're a Dave Ramsey person, you know. I'm Dave Ramsey light, you know, whatever. But you know, which is really not Dave Ramsey. So Dave. Yeah, don't Dave. But I hear what you're saying. Yeah, if that works for you, but I just, you know, I have never wanted to cling so tightly that I can't put it down. I hold everything loosely. I mean, and that's kind of like in life, just in general. Like I hold things loosely, because when you have that tight grip on things, it just, if the thing is ripped from your hands. I mean, look at our friends in North Carolina. I mean, I have so many vintage and antique seller friends. The River Arts District in Asheville, I mean, I go there, I shop there, it's gone. You know, and so if something is taken away from you, like in that situation, you know, the tighter the grip, the harder it's going to be on your hand when it's ripped out. You know what I'm saying? And you know, so I never wanted to do anything in my business I never wanted to pick anything up that I couldn't set down immediately. And so that'll mean different things to different people. But, you know, I never went into debt to do my business. I was never going to do this business and put myself or my family into financial straits. That's why it's like, I bought things. I have really nice industrial machines. I bought it all with cash, you know, because that was just something that was very important to me. And it's taken a long time. It's, you know, over the years to sort of develop this. And my growth has been slower maybe than some of the other like quilt coat brands that you see online and the people doing similar work to me. But I don't, that's okay. I don't want that life. Like I feel like I finally reached kind of a like homeostasis, sort of a balance of like, okay, this is, you know, it's shifted obviously, but I'm like, this is what I got right now is good. And you know, could I use some help? Yes. But if I don't find help, I don't have an employee waiting on me. You know, like it's just like, what are we gonna do, Sarah? I don't know. You're not, you know. So I just never wanted. I just never wanted to be in a position where I couldn't set it down. And anything in my life, like I say, my husband and I say frequently, everything's on the table. Like everything is always up for review. You know, like is this what God wants us to do? Is this making us happy? Like is this where we're supposed to be? And if it isn't, we adjust. So yeah.
And I think that attitude, that openness, serves us really well in business and life, and also makes it easier to pivot. And that's why you pivot, is because you don't have, I think about that too. It's like the business is flexible. It's not carrying a huge baggage of things, where I just have this vision of someone as we're on this journey of like entrepreneurship, you know, and it's different. Like if you have a brick and mortar shop, you know, that
never wanted that.
That is what they want, you know, and their business is going to be different. But even if that is what you want, there are ways to be open and reflect and like responsive to what's happening. And I think that's really important.
Well, and
talk us through.
Oh, I was just
go ahead.
I was just going to say one other thing about that too, is that I think that people often look at someone else's like point in their journey as like where I need to be today, where, you know, it's taken me 10 years to get here. You know, or when I was doing the business full time, it took me like 6 years to get there. You know, so looking at where someone else is at in their journey, I mean, you just don't always get a perspective of how long it's taken them to get there, and what it takes to get there. And so I don't know, you know, we always say like, don't compare yourself, but really don't compare yourself to someone else's endpoint on their journey or someone else's spot in their journey, because your journey is different and you have to make decisions for yourself. And I do think like stuff like this is helpful, because it helps people to see, conversations that you guys have helps people to see, okay, well, how did this person do this, or how did this person do that, to help people figure out what they want to do. But I do want to stress, like, you have to decide for yourself what you want and what you want your business to do. Nobody else can tell you what you want. I mean, they can tell, like, you know, you guys can tell people how you got to where you are, but at the end of the day, if somebody is not super clear on their goals and how they want to operate, and I don't mean operate like business operations, I mean just how they want to operate in life. I mean,
mentally.
Mentally. Yeah, it's whatever you pick up, you have to, I think you got to be willing to put it down. And you also have to understand that you only have two hands, and so whatever you're picking up, I'm an English major, so I'm speaking a lot of metaphors. I apologize. It's just how I am. But whatever you're going to pick, you have two hands. So whatever you're picking up, you can't carry it all. So if you're going to pick up another collaboration, that's going to be less time with your kids. If you're going to open up 3 or 4 or 10 antique booths, but what are you setting aside to do that? Because you only have so much time in your day. And so
and I think also going back to like people's backgrounds, what's so interesting to me also is like we don't see what they were doing before they came into vintage. That's what I love asking, like, what were you doing before this? It makes it on both sides, because I talk to some dealer friends, and I have one friend here locally, and he's been selling at flea markets since he was 16. Now he's shows at Marburger Farm and goes all over the country. Well, the knowledge base, right? You've literally been doing this all your life. I have other friends who grew up in the business. Their parents were dealers. They I cannot you know, I've only been doing this for 3 years. I cannot compare myself. You know, in my head, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have 30 years to catch up on. And that actually excites me. I mean, I don't take that as a bad way.
Yeah.
That makes me really excited because I think I could spend the next 30 years of my life. I met someone who was 50 years older than me, and she still deals in shows downtown in Kansas City. Her name was Karen, and we were talking. She's like, I'm 87. I'm like, Karen, do you mean to tell me I could be doing this for the next 50 years of my life? She's like, heck yes. I'm like, oh my God, that's
Oh,
so cool.
yeah. I mean, I fully intend, like, I mean,
Yeah.
no matter what, but you have to be able to, you know, like,
Oh, hold on, there we go. Lost your audio for a minute.
I got a phone call. I declined. I was like, no,
Oh.
I don't.
Thank you.
I was, you know, that's the nice thing about the vintage, antique, thrift type of business. People will always want to buy old stuff. Always. I mean,
and stuff's always getting old.
And stuff's always getting old. That's exactly right. You know, so it's like, I mean, at any point, am I open to like going back to antique clothing or go? I mean, yeah, like, I mean, I have no plans to do that. I'm just, you know, using it as an example, like, you know, I'm going to do this professor thing and we'll see where this path goes. And I'm going to keep doing this, you know, selling the coats and the quilts and the things. And, but one day I might put this down. And one day I might decide to like open an antique booth with my husband. Like, I mean, that's the nice thing about antiques, junking, you know, there's always room for more junk. People always want it.
It's in so many directions. So you can go so many directions. And the cool thing too, which I think actually connects with your shop motto of redemption is possible and nothing is wasted, is that for all of us, even though I don't have a background of growing up in antiques, every one of us has skills, talents, knowledge, experiences that when we bring into this business, it's so cool to see how those get used.
Yeah.
Like I managed a clinic for 5 years, an outreach clinic at a homeless shelter, and I didn't realize how much of that management experience actually would come into managing a business. It didn't feel foreign. I was naturally adept. I'm not great with numbers. I don't understand how I can be a poor housekeeper, and I'm not great at math. But somehow when it comes to business, I think when it's physical, tactile things of like seeing the systems and managing all that, I love it. I love it. And so sometimes people might look, you know, and they just see me running a business and they don't see all these other life experiences dealing with unhappy customers. I was a nurse for 15 years. I dealt with a lot of very unhappy people, you know, and so hopefully people are encouraged. Like you can look back and see at your past life experiences and see like there are things that you bring into the business, your unique selling point. Like people talk about that a lot, that are going to help you to be your own unique creative self in the business that you love, whatever that looks like.
Yeah. I wrote a whole dissertation on that, actually.
Really?
Oh, wow.
No, I did. I did. It was a little bit of a different perspective, but like in the academic literature, there's a lot of work, and I study writing and writing practices. So how people write, we call it literate activity, whatever. Anyway, but essentially there's a lot of literature out there that says that in order to do or be this particular thing, in my case, it was a civil and environmental engineer or a scientist. In order to be a scientist, you have to do boom, boom, boom. You have to have these particular skills. And what I wrote about, and what I found when I was doing my dissertation was actually how that's just not the case. That whenever my participants were doing the work of being a scientist, they were calling on all sorts of different pathways of writing and of being in the world that push them into this path. Like there's no one right path to become an engineer or nurse or a business owner or whatever, but people rely on and utilize all of their literate activity, literate practices across the spans of their lives. And so I wrote a whole dissertation about that. So because it's true. I mean, you can use, I mean, things like you said, things that you wouldn't ever realize come to bear. I mean, you know, I'm an English major. I'm a storyteller. I write for Okra magazine. I tell stories. I mean, that's all I'm doing online. That's all these quilts are, is a story, just another version of a story, you know. So anyway, yeah, yes, agree.
Yeah. Nicole, how does being an architect? Now I'm like, I want to ask everyone, like,
Yeah,
how
like,
does, seriously though, how does your, because you have a very technical profession, come into your business?
Well, right now I'm just working on like doing the drawings with this company that I'm working for, but prior to 2020, like, you know, with all the shutdowns and everything, there was no need for construction because nothing was really, everything was on hold. So that's like when I actually like pivoted from architecture to be able to start my business, was because I had the time and the means to be able to do it. But when I was at the other firm, I was with them for almost 9 years and right out of college. And it was very technical. I started as like a drafter, so like all of like the architectural drawings are on the computer now. Like they're not hand drafted anymore. Thank God, seriously, because that was like hard enough to do in school. But so I went from that into like management. So then I was a project manager, I think the last 3 years that I was there, and I was overseeing about 80 or so projects at a time, like
Oh, wow.
from beginning to like construction phase. So like being able to organize that and like create spreadsheets and then schedule meetings and phone calls and site visits and all that kind of stuff, like that like helped me tremendously with like, especially with keeping open boxes for people. It's like so many people ask me, how do you remember these things? I'm like, well, I don't know, it just kind of like is branded in my head. But
You do,
that and like
yeah.
just tracking like from the technical point, just like tracking all your expenses, tracking all your invoices, tracking all that it kind of just came like naturally because I had been used to doing that for like the other part of my career, I guess you would say.
Oh, and that is a huge part. That's like the really non-sexy part of running a business and actually turning a profit is like getting stuff to people that, getting paid and getting it to them.
Yeah.
It's the bulk
Yeah.
of it.
I was just doing that
Oh,
before we got on live. I was like, okay, I have like 7 minutes. I can pack another box to send out.
Mhm.
I know, always little things. Okay, we're kind of winding down at the end of our time, but I do want to talk about little salty topic,
Oh,
the controversy over quilt clothing and how you handle like trolls and negativity and people attacking your work because you guys may not realize that quilt clothes are little controversial.
little bit.
Little controversial. And so, can you give us a little window into what that is like and kind of like what is your mindset when responding or even choosing not to respond
Yeah.
to people who are negative? Like, what are your boundary lines, right?
Boundaries.
Yeah.
Well, like I said earlier, never been a people pleaser. So, people
Makes life so much easier.
what's that?
I said it makes life a lot easier.
It really does. I would not say that I'm not just a, well, whatever, but okay. So I guess, how can I say this? So the backstory on the quilt clothing. So clothes that have been made from quilts is something that has been a part of American quilting history for, I mean, there since the 1700s. There are examples in the Smithsonian Museum of petticoats that women had used that are made of quilts, not the patchwork quilts that we think of because that became kind of a later American tradition, but in the 1700s it would have been these big just broadcloth type quilts that would be hand quilted together. And so anyway, so there are these examples of this clothing made from quilts. And the one that I told you about, at the beginning of all of this was that had been constructed in the 1920s. So there is a cyclical nature to textiles and textile use. I mean, so many people are like, oh, I have several quilts that are made from in the, like 1900s to 1920s. that are made of jeans and old work clothing. You know, so you could take clothing that was hand sewn and handmade and turn that into a quilt, and that's okay. But then, like, to do it in the reverse, people kind of got upset about. And so there was a huge, like, there's a woman who shall not be named. I will not give her any attention, but she is a very well-known, her family has been in like deals in antique textiles and quilts for eons. And she got on YouTube about I don't know, is this maybe 2 years ago? I mean, and it comes back around. So like, it's like people, I don't know, they get upset about it again, or they just learn about it, whatever, you know. And so she posted this video about how quilt clothes must die, and kind of railed on all of the people that were making clothing from antique and vintage textiles. So it created quite a buzz online. But so I dove into, like, probably about 2 years before that, so maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, I actually did a deep dive into this, just reading up on it for my own, just because I'm a nerd like that. And Ralph Lauren, I mentioned him too earlier. Ralph Lauren did lots of quilt coat collections in the 80s. I think it was 1982, where he came out for several years in a row with blazers and quilts, or excuse me, blazers and skirts made of toppers, and blouses made of toppers, blazers made of antique quilts. And like, the quilting community lost their ever loving minds. Like, when Whitney and I affectionately refer them as the quilt biddies. I mean, that's just, you know,
we love them.
We do. We love them. They're so wonderful. They're wonderful people. They give me quilts and I cut them. So, you know, but I will say that, like, so the controversy is not a new controversy. Like, it's been around forever. People always getting upset, and the rationale behind the controversy. So to you know, I always try to understand. I like to understand people. That is just sort of like, that's why I did my, just like, I'm curious. I want to know why, what makes people tick. Why are they doing things in the way they're doing? And they were upset because, you know, in their defense, they saw things that, you know, America doesn't have a lot of like things that are culturally specific to American, like American art, you know, because so much of our art and kind of all of it stems from Europe, and sort of the, you know, traditions come from European traditions. And so patchwork quilts are a uniquely American craft and art form. Like, you don't see patchwork quilts made in the patterns in which they're made. Now, you do see some in some Asian countries. There's like Japanese boro, and like, it's not that nobody else uses patchwork, but the styles and the colors and the way that American patchwork quilts are put together is something that is uniquely American. So a lot of people saw this like as a desecration. Like, you are destroying our cultural heritage. And, you know, so okay. I'm looking, I got distracted by the comment. Somebody like posted a long comment. I'm like, I must
yeah, she was just like, she says, I guess they would rather have the quilts thrown away. I mean,
well, okay. What's that? Yeah.
Anyway.
So anyway, so people really got up in arms about this issue. And, you know, any of us that did that, like, received just a lot of flack online about it. Just, and here's my thing. Like, those are people that I don't know. They're just strangers on the internet. I don't care what they say to me. Like, it doesn't affect me. You know what I mean? It's like, do I want to, you know, do I want to be loving and kind? Yeah, but I don't engage with it. I say, I put on my, we joked because Whitney was like, is Salty Sarah gonna come? And I was like, oh, probably, you know, like, Salty Sarah has been known to show her face. But I just don't have time for nonsense, you know, and you want to people just, sometimes I think people just want something to be upset about. I don't know why. I don't know why they want something to be upset about, but it's more about them than it is about me. So I just spit facts and just say, well, here's what I know about the history of quilt clothing. Another thing too is I understand as well, because I for sure have seen some like very rare antique quilts that probably should have stayed quilts. Some like the most common thing is like a wig's defeat, right? So a wig's defeat is an early Civil War, 1850s, 1860s pattern, 50s or 60s, probably 60s. And you just don't, they were made at a very specific time for a very specific purpose, and you just don't see them. And so I understand that. But what I also know about quilts and quilting is the incomprehensible volume of quilts that were created and made between the 1820s, 1830s, and like say the 50s. Because really my cutoff for working with quilts is the 50s. And that's simply because polyester became a thing after that. And so polyester and polyester batting is a lot harder to work with. That's just a personal preference. I've seen really cute quilt coats made out of like 70s quilts and stuff. I mean, that's fine. And I have no problem cutting those. And, eventually all these beautiful people making beautiful quilts right now, I'm going to cut it and I'm going to make a coat when I'm 80, So anyway, so I really think that, yeah, that was just a very interesting phenomenon. And if you think about just the amount of people in the world, in the nation, who were quilting, everybody had to quilt. How many people were in the United States between those years, and at least one person in the family was making quilts because they had to, because you weren't going to Sears and Roebuck and buying it. So there's a lot of quilts. Museum collections are
unreal.
Vast quilts that will
never see the light. I've got one 30 minutes down the road, Spencer Art Museum. That hundreds and hundreds of quilts. I can't even go see them. The Cary Hall block collection and all that. I mean, it's.
And that's museums plus personal collections. I mean, I've got.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I have a ton of quilts that I won't cut because I think they're too rare. They're too beautiful. There's something about the pattern that is unique. Oh, there's one that's coming up at the sale that I'm going to this weekend.
Don't rub it in.
No, it is, you would look at it and you'd be like, what? But it is a postage stamp quilt. But the postage stamps, I've never seen one like this. The postage stamps are cut in half and are made up of two different fabrics. Can you imagine? Like, so they're, probably an inch by an inch, if not smaller. Yeah. And then they're blocked together. So somebody made a block of these postage stamp size cut in half, teeny tiny, and then blocked it out, so that it's, I have never seen one like this. So,
and the truth too is that the condition, because that's why I enjoy working with you, is because you are intentional and thoughtful about what you create with, what you work with.
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is, we come across some very ragged, like just the backs are shattered, or it's just had
like a moth, like mice got on.
Come on, you have a really good word for it. Oh, what do we always say?
Crunchy? What do I say? I say crunchy?
No, it starts with an SH. I call them like knackered, or it's just been like, it's just so worn out. And and some of those quilts, it is amazing where you can salvage them and take them in. So really, for everyone who's like, well, I'm not cutting up quilts, but there's even negativity. Someone was talking to me about some dealers talking smack on other dealers about their prices and stuff, I guess somewhere in the Instagram world. I'm not even gonna get into it, but I think I want to come back to the fact that it's like, you're like, you know what your values are, you know what your purpose is, you know what you're doing, and these people, it's different, and maybe we can discuss that. Like, these people are not having a direct impact on your business. They're not coming to your page and talking smack on you, and so you just have that confidence of being like, okay, people, I am 100% like, you are entitled to your opinion. I celebrate your opinion, and I can keep doing, I can keep pursuing what I know that I want to do, what I'm called to do.
Yeah.
And do you have boundary lines for like, what is the boundary line where you would, I don't know, block someone or like, how do you even though protect? Because I had a friend, well, I just saw her yesterday. She came to my house. She is also a maker,
Mm-hmm.
and she posted something on Facebook about cutting up quilts. And I think this was a year ago, maybe. And
Okay.
she said that they took that post. Someone in some quilt group posted the post, and then all those members came over and just completely trolled her
Yeah.
on her reel. She's like, I've posted dozens of reels before and after this about coats, but this specific one. So, like, how do you handle when people are coming in, attacking your business, attacking you personally? Because I think that we know that 1,000% happens on the internet.
Yes, it does. I will say I have been very blessed, and I have never had a like a witch hunt after me, so to speak. I have had some negativity online about the work that I do, but I have not ever been the victim of online harassment or online bullying. And so I also I don't have time for nonsense, as I mentioned. So some of the boundaries are I just don't engage. Like that's not true. I do engage if I can share a fact. So if somebody's
I
like,
like
oh
that.
well, we're gonna cut up all the quilts, and I'm like, actually, there's a million quilts online, in the world. We're not gonna cut them all. So if I can address a comment with a fact and say like, no, that's incorrect. And then of course people don't want to hear, they want your reaction. So I don't, that's what they're after, is coming unglued. And I just don't give them that opportunity. I address it with a fact. If they continue to harass or say something, and I'm just like, I will be blocked and be blessed. I will block, but I will say, thankfully, I have not really had to do that. In just in my experience, I have been lucky. I think, so, you have to have a thick skin to do this work and to do it online too. You have to understand that people will sometimes misinterpret your work, and people could take any of my reels. I'm sure they have, but I don't let it get to me. I don't engage. I don't go seeking it. If, oh, well, somebody posted this reel, it's like, well,
Mm.
I
Yeah.
just, I kind of, because there's really nothing you're going to say to change somebody's mind. There's nothing that you're going to say to defend, you can defend yourself, but it's not, again, in the online world, that stuff is not going to, you defending yourself, yeah, it's wrong. But what you say is just not going to change people's minds. They're going to think what they want to think. And I can either spend time trying to engage with that and like putting all my emotional energy into that and really try to like right that wrong, or I could leave it in someone else's hands, and I do. So, but I know other people, that is not other people's experience. And I know that people have had like very significant, like online attacks, and that does impact, it can impact, people's careers and livelihoods. People can get doxxed, all kinds of stuff. And so I have great sympathy for that. I have not ever experienced that myself. So yeah.
Yeah. And I can speak, I can speak from experience from a previous online business venture, not in the vintage world, of having gone through that. And I think you're so right. It's like you have to decide where your energy is at. So now part of it, I think, has to do with our ego. There is nothing worse for flattening out your ego than like family and running your own business.
Yeah.
Because when that happened to me, it was very, I was kind of mad because this specific trolling. 2020 was a terrible year, had happened to many people, and I was like the 10th, and I was just fed up with the behavior going, like people not standing up for everyone
Right.
else, you know. But a lot of that was ego of saying, how dare you say that about me? So I've got to stand up and say, but it actually doesn't move your business forward. And it sucked so much creative energy and momentum out that looking back, but it was so, I think, unfortunately, you know, since I think 2020 was when a lot of the gloves came off for people's behavior online, and people realized they could say literally whatever they wanted to, anything, the worst kinds of things. And and I can tell you, after coming through that, it does make you stronger. You rebuild stronger. You have the resilience and the emotional resilience where it's like, if you're not a customer of mine and I have no relationship to you, and you like, if there's no connection and you're just saying these, I literally don't care. Like, be blessed and blah. I mean, I don't have the emotional energy to engage with someone who, and so much of it was about getting clout with social justice warriors, you know, like, oh, well, I've got to say something and post, and then I'm going to look a certain way. And it's just like, it's nonsense. It's all nonsense. And I do think that those of us, not to say, I don't want this to come out wrong, but for those of us with limited time and capacity, whether it's because you have a physical health condition, or you have a full-time job, or you have a family, it makes us very intentional, and like, we prioritize. I only have time for these three things. I do not have time to mess. I have a saying that I've been telling myself a lot, because I have this idea, and this is for the moms, you know, in the group, and other people who have these time restrictions, because the constant refrain is, I don't have enough time. If only I had more childcare. If only I had this. If only, you know, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, I have enough time to do everything that God has called me to do, which means I do not have time to waste on things He's not telling me to do.
Exactly.
And that has just really, really helped to just narrow down my focus on being like, if this isn't on the list, I don't have time for it. So, so yeah, it is. So if you guys, you know, you ever have someone trolling you in your live, or commenting negative things, or complain, like, obviously, if it's a customer, deal with them one-on-one. Like, do what you can to, you know, provide good customer service. But you really just stay laser focused on what your priorities are, and just keep showing up for your business. I think that is, it's a hard lesson to learn, but then once you learn it, you're just like, oh boy.
And you know, I will just say, you know, everybody is different, you know, so the way I want to approach it is not going to be, you know, I've seen lately, I saw a brand do this is not a clothing or vintage brand or whatever, but I saw a brand post some political content, and like was destroyed online for what they posted. But their whole kind of persona about it is, and you know, I mean, and they I think that they lost followers, you know, but I think they gained a lot of followers too, you know. So I think, and their approach was like addressing not every comment that someone left someone left, but a lot of the comments, you know. And I was like, okay, well, I mean, I admire that's what they, you know, like you said, good for them, not for me. And so you just, everybody's different, and you have to decide where your boundaries are, what you're capable of doing, how you're capable of. And there's some like really salty people who just like will say some stuff, and you just have to decide how you're going to handle it. Maybe you're just salty, and maybe you have the capacity and the wherewithal to go on attack mode. Maybe that you can do that. That's not me. So now I will get salty, of course, but I'll just spit some facts, like I said, and just be done with it. So I hear you.
Yeah, and we
have to like evaluate how you want to be perceived too. So like if you are like, okay, I'm going to go on attack mode, like what is that going to do to your business? Might not be a would work for you, but like it depends on the intensity of the comments that you're receiving. You might want to just like sidebar into like messages instead of like publicly on your page kind of a thing. But
well, that was not what this brand did. They, I mean, but that's also they're like, no, they're like their persona is like hardcore, like, meh. You know, like that's just their. I think they might be New Yorkers. So New Yorkers are built different than some of their. You know, maybe I could be wrong, but it just like the whole persona is like, oh, I feel like you're a New Yorker. No offense to New Yorkers. I'm just saying you're built different. It's just you know. So
yeah. And again, it comes back to your values.
Right.
If your business value is, I want to make this part of my business platform,
right,
and this is what I want to do, then that's great. At least they're staying true to that.
Yeah.
And I also want to say, we talked about this a bit with Heather last month from Thrifted Home Co. because she is, and I've seen her in live. If she gets, if someone trolls her about prices or says anything, boom, she's like, I have zero tolerance for nonsense. If you're going to come into my room, you're going to come into my house, and you're going to either attack someone else that's here, or you are going to say anything negative, you're out. Like she has no compunction. And so like you have, and I almost never, I only block the weirdo, you know, Cano Reeves accounts, or like of the dudes, you know.
Yeah.
But it's like, so I think it's so important when you're in business, figure out where your boundaries are and stick to them and make it clear. This is my expectation. You are respectful and kind. And if you're not, boom, you're out. Because I control the atmosphere of my house. And if you're not going to play by my rules, I don't have to let you in. So,
that's true.
So,
because you want it to be a good experience for your customers too.
Yep.
So like I kicked a couple of people out of live sales for like basically like criticizing what we're showing or our prices. And I was just like you're toxic. Like you don't belong here.
You are not entitled to be here. So I think that's
I have not, I mean, I will block somebody if they're being weird, but I haven't really had to block a lot of people. Just simply, even people that are trolls. Like there was one person one time on one of my reels. I can't even remember what the reel was, but this person, she just like would not let it go. And I was like, what is the deal? I didn't even block her. I mean, she would like over and over and over. And I was just like, nope, here's the facts. Nope, here's the facts. Nope, here's the facts. And I even got to the point where I was like, well, why are you here? Like, you don't follow me. Like, what are you doing here? Like, you have no like dog in this fight. Like what? And eventually she just stopped. But I just never felt, I was like, whatever. Like, I didn't even block her. It's just, because it just doesn't affect me. You know, it's just like I've gotten to a point where I'm just like, yeah, I can handle some flack. But again, like very serious, like massive things, I have not, like what I saw this one company that I mentioned doing or experiencing, I have not had anything like that happen to me. So.
All right. Does anyone have any more comments or questions? You can, clearly we're an open book. Drop them below real quick, but we are going to wrap it up. Oh my gosh, Sarah, this has been so fun. And Nicole, this has been so fun. So just so you guys know, you can comment YouTube below. Make sure that you're following all three of us, please. We appreciate it so much, and you don't want to miss out on anything that we're bringing. You, Sarah, you did just have a drop last week, right?
I did. I had a drop. I have some tops. So these are my dead stock drops that I do on occasion, because I always like to try out new clothing designs on dead stock fabric before I put them into quilt toppers and things like that. Just, you know, because the fabric is like way less expensive. I mean, it's not cheap, but you know, it's just, and it's bolts. And I usually work with stuff from the fashion industry that's dead stock. And yeah, I just had a launch. I have a few of the blue left, and maybe one of the blue and yellow dresses, tunics, tops. And then the next drop is going to be in a couple weeks. It's going to be this dress in a quilt top version. And then I've got some more coats coming as well. I do have a couple of coats in the shop right now. They're sample coats actually. So they're discounted. So if you're interested.
Okay. All on the website.
Yeah. So I usually try to do like a drop a month or so. That's about what I can do. Sometimes two. Yeah.
Okay, I do want to answer very quick. Someone asked about blocking customers who are non-payers or continually backing out of claims from lives. So I've had this happen 1 or 2 times, and I kind of have like 2 strikes, you're
Yeah.
out, you know. But
Yeah.
I don't block them because I have had them go through and purchase from my website. So what I tell them is I'm just very upfront, like, if you're not going to pay, I will ignore your claims in a live sale.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can still come in, you can look, but I'm gonna ignore your claims.
Yeah.
But I really try not to block. And Barbara, make sure that YouTube is all one word without a space, just like it looks below. I know the autocorrect is always messing up YouTube for people. I should change that. Anyway, but that's how I handle the it's very, very rare. It's very rare, and I think it's because honestly, I think it's because I invoice so quickly, usually within a few hours of the sale. Nicole, how do you handle?
I've been fortunate where it hasn't happened a lot, at least recently. I had one customer that would like keep claiming on things and then decide that she didn't want them. So I kind of put her on like probation, I guess you would say, where like I would just say, hey, listen, like you're claiming on items and you're not paying. So, but then she turned around and now she's fine.
Yeah.
So I think like I don't want to block people if like,
Yeah.
I get it. If you're excited, especially on a live sale, like, oh, I want this. And like you want to make sure your claim goes in first, but you have to also like consider the back end of it. Like, okay, you're adding to your tab. And then maybe it's not like when you're shopping like online where you could add stuff to your cart and then look at the cart and then like maybe delete things as you go. Like when you're claiming, just be mindful that like that is a commitment. Like you're looking like this is a definite yes, I want this, not like a maybe.
Do you guys in your live sales, when I was selling vintage clothing, I always did in my sales, I always had backups.
Yeah.
I mean, do you do backups? Because if somebody, and I always gave people a time limit, and I was like, okay, well you have 30 minutes, or sometimes I was like, you have 15 minutes. When you get that invoice, you pay. And I had very few situations. And I do this with my quilt cult sales that I have from time to time.
Oh, we should. Oh, we didn't even talk about that.
Didn't even talk about the quilt cult.
Yeah. Are we allowed to?
Yeah, you for sure. I say that it's the secret club, but it's not. I mean, it's not a secret.
It's a place to get amazing vintage quilts on Instagram.
Yes,
you just go to Sarah's Quilt Cult.
Sarah's Quilt Cult is what it is. Sarah's Quilt Cult. I'll put it on here, or you will. Somebody will. Sarah's Quilt Cult. That's where I will do. I will do like if I have a lot of a stash, and sometimes I just get overwhelmed with quilts, and I'm like, I don't want to have them. I can get rid of them, and they're pretty reasonably priced. Like most of them are like I do occasionally sell some amazing antique ones on there, but most of them are like under $200, and a lot of them are right around the $100 mark. So so they're not perfect at all. But yeah, when I was selling vintage clothing, I would always have a sale. I always allowed backups so that and you claim the item, and then other people can say backup. And then if you don't, as soon as I invoice like you, Whitney, I was always like, phew, could invoice really quickly. And if they didn't pay the invoice within 15 minutes, I automatically invoice the next person. So just
never pays it. Yeah. I have I think the main thing that has been so helpful is having really clear expectations of like, I will invoice within 24 hours. You have 24 hours to pay. And then sticking to that, I think helps with customers. It helps a lot. I shouldn't even, it doesn't matter because they're not on here. There is one customer that has bought quilts from some friends of mine, and it is a customer that is, this will sound terrible, but I'll just say it, very, very known for then returning or complaining about every single piece that they get in the mail, every single piece. It's a huge problem, and so there's kind of a collective agreement to be like, be blessed and blocked, blocked, I'm not going to sell to you anymore because I don't think I can meet your standard of perfection.
Right.
But if you consistently are buying and complaining and asking for refunds, asking for returns on like $500 quilts, it's just like I just can't risk that kind of.
Yeah.
There's even kind of, you can have a boundary like that where, and that's like a over and over and over and over, like a very chronic problem over the months
Yeah.
of just being like, I'm sorry, like I don't think we're a good fit.
Yeah.
If you don't agree with me.
No, I think that's smart. I actually don't have a return policy.
I don't
So
either. I mean, it's like, well, this quilt, the photos weren't good. This wasn't in the photo. Like all of these things where it's just like consistently. So yeah.
So then maybe people should not be buying online.
Right.
And that's like one of those people that it's like, if you need to see every square inch of something, go to the store and shop for it. Like, don't buy online if you're going to go complain about everything.
Yeah,
or if you're just looking for a discount, trying to find some minor defect to help with your team.
I'm not Amazon. My labor, and for me, I mean, it's a little different for you guys, but it's like my labor went into that, and I just,
your coats? No, absolutely not.
For my coats and my quilts, and even the tops, like my return policy is that I do not accept returns, but if you have an issue, to contact me and I will handle it on a case by case basis. And I was talking to my friend MK, whose shop I have a shop where my coats are here in
Birmingham. Didn't even talk about that. You're also doing wholesale.
Yeah, I also do some wholesale.
Oh, I meant to bring that up.
Do some wholesale. Yeah, I mean that's actually great. I love that. We don't have to, but yeah. So I have a couple shops, one in Franklin, Tennessee, Harpeth Goods, and shop MK Quinlan in Birmingham, where people can look at my coats in person and shop there. So that's been a very easy yes for me, because I don't have to market those. I don't have to do anything. I just make them, send them, they pay me. It's great.
Another revenue stream.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I just have to point out, do you see, guys, Sarah, I always talk about this multiple revenue streams website, quilts, coats, wholesale orders. Anyway, just pointing that out.
Yeah. And I used to do commissions, but that's one thing I don't do those anymore. Like I just was like, no, I don't want to do that. But getting back to what were we talking about before?
Sorry, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Nope. It's okay. I forgot what it was. We were talking about something I was going to mention.
About just seeing it in person.
No, return policy.
Yeah.
I was just saying, like, a lot of people feel like they have to do that. I mean, you don't. Like, there's so much risk. There's so much risk that comes with like returning, especially like antique items. Like, I'm sorry, like the amount of shipping that I know, at least I know Whitney, the amount of like care and shipping. No, I don't accept returns. I have never had a person return a coat or an antique clothing item in the 10 years that I have done business. I have had one, I could count on maybe one hand the times where I've had to have something returned. Again, that kind of goes back to my perfectionism. I don't put out trash.
Yep.
And I'm very like thorough when I'm selling stuff. Like, here are the issues. So you do have to be thorough.
Do your due diligence. Answer all the questions for the customers. Any question, I think of that often when I have a piece, especially if it needs repair. Like, what questions do I need to answer for the customer so they feel confident in buying this?
Yeah. So, do you all see this question that came through?
Yeah, sorry, I popped that up because it came in the question box, and I just wanted to make sure. I mean, just really quick about quilt pricing. I mean,
you price the quilt. You price the quilt what the market can bear. And you price the quilt like, okay, so one tip for anything really is that I was given a long time ago when it came to selling is you can't worry about the money in someone else's pocket. Meaning,
typing that out.
Yeah, you can't, because have there been situations in which I've priced something like moderately low and then somebody else sells it for a higher price? Great, I got my money. Right, I got my money.
You do that for me all the time. I'm like, I don't want to sell this. Here's 10 quilts. Do what you will. I literally don't care.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you can't worry about the money in someone else's pocket. You need to price the item what the market can bear, and what the quilt market can bear. And you need to price it based on your time that it took you to wash it and find it, and how much money it took you to buy it, you know, so what you had in it, but financially and time. So don't forget to pay yourself, you know, and then double that, you know, figure out what do I, or double, or, you know, if you want to triple it, you can.
Triple. I mean,
but
oh, this is
the minimum. That's the minimum is double. So
this is a whole conversation I was just having yesterday. Couple things about this. First off, this is how I see it. What I pay for something is irrelevant to the market value for an item. That's an important thing. Just because I paid $100 for something, if it's only worth 125, I can't double that. So it is so important when you go out and buy something, you have to know in general what you're going to sell it for. I mean, because if I overpay for something, okay, this makes sense, Sarah. I see you thinking about it. If
I just don't know what it means to overpay for something.
Like if I pay $500,
I just don't overpay for something.
Exactly. That's it. You don't overpay. Okay, and so how do you market research value? It's watching quilt sales. Watch mine. Go online. You and also guys, also I'm an open book. If you ever want to message me and say, hey, how much did this sell for?
Yeah.
Not every seller is okay with that. Just
I have a quilt cult. Or I mean a quilt like vault where you can go on my website and you can see old quilts, old coats, and you click on it, you can see the price that it sold for. Because my
price is hidden, but if I know you're a seller and you're trying to do, you know, your due diligence, I'm fine if you message me and ask. So it's watching quilt sales, going on Etsy. Also, it comes down to condition, age, rarity. Condition, you can always add value by washing it. I have a free quilt washing guide. Just ask me for the link. Sarah also has a quilt washing guide on her website. So condition, you have to, obviously it can be the rarest pattern in the world, but if it's tattered and ragged, the value's gone down. Pattern, there are certain patterns like grandmother's flower garden, wedding ring, etc., that just are all over the place. They're so overdone. I only pick those up if they are like, there's something that sets them apart and makes them really unique. And age, if obviously the older the quilt is, the more valuable it is. So you have to consider those three factors in your pricing. And then you have to consider your audience. If you feel like you have a really, like one of the first things I did as a very, very new dealer, and I'll just tell you guys, I walked into an antique mall. This was like within the first 3 months. This is what got me hooked. Walk into a local antique mall and there's this red and white quilt there. And I didn't know what it was, but I knew it was spectacular. I had no audience at the time. I bought it for $80. And then I posted a few photos of it, and I had another quilt dealer reach out to me and saw the pictures, and I was thinking about selling it for maybe $200 or $300, but I wasn't sure. And she's like, this quilt is exceptional. Would you consider going on commission? This is what we think it's worth. And I thought about it, and I'm like, this makes sense because I think by partnering with you, I can make more money because I do not have the audience. This quilt needs to get in front of an audience who has the money and means and motivation to acquire this quilt, and we ended up selling it for $1,100.
Yeah.
So, I mean that is the market value for that quilt because it was a pattern I've never seen since, never seen before, immaculate condition, and that seller had the audience. So that's the other thing, you can have a $1,200 quilt, but if you don't have the audience, you have to figure out how to get access to the audience and sometimes you might sell it on. You can sell it to, hey, I have this quilt, it's worth $1,200. This is like once in every 5 years, but there is nothing wrong with selling it up the totem pole. Find a dealer, contact me and be like, hey, a friend, we just did this the other day too with a friend. They bought it, both of the girls doubled their money, right? And they got it because the one person didn't have the audience. So she sold it to a dealer and that dealer found the audience for it and everyone made money and everyone's happy. So there's a lot of different ways that you can approach this, but guys, I don't know, sorry, this is one of my soapboxes. Like, there's nothing wrong with selling to other dealers who will sell it for more money. That's just the whole like ecosystem, the food ecosystem of like the antique world. I swear, like dealers at shows will buy more from each other than they sell to their actual customers. This is just how it works. So as long as you're making money and your margin is there and you learn something along the way, then chalk it up to success.
Yeah.
I get very. All right. Any other questions or anything? Guys, thank you so much for being here, Sarah. Thank you for spending your morning with us.
Yeah.
Wow, I feel like we've fire hosed everyone with information.
And people can ask, like, I'm an open book as well. Like I got no secrets. So like you said, if people have questions about more specific questions about how to pivot or how to do any of these things, and kind of where it's taken me, again, like I know I'm a little bit of a different sort of genre than your audience, but I've had, I mean, I've done it. I've done it. You know, I might do it in the future. Who knows? Who knows?
Do you still offer your like coffee chat quilt consult thing?
Yeah, I do. I have that on my website as well, where I just like sit down one-on-one with people and kind of walk them through business stuff. That's on my website.
Where is it?
But yeah, I don't mind. Maybe it's not. Maybe I gotta repost it. Sometimes
I don't see a link.
It's not a link.
So
okay, I can.
Yeah,
people can
like
just
you
DM
do
me.
some consulting,
Consulting light. Yes,
right. It's very affordable.
Yeah,
I
think it was like $25 for maybe 45-minute conversation about just, I mean, everything. And I've helped people get started in the quilt coat thing. I've helped people do all kinds of stuff. I don't mind answering a few questions, but like if you want to have a longer conversation, we do ask for tips and things. It's okay to pay people, and it's okay to value your time and your work. So it's okay for you to charge people. Like it's okay.
All right. So. Right. And we will have the replay up here shortly. Watch for the links. Our next shop talk is in November, and it's going to be about running. It's going to be with Melanie from Lost and Found Decor. It's on November 6th. That will be a Wednesday at 10 a.m. And it will be with Melanie from Lost and Found Decor talking about running like simultaneous physical booth space and an online business. She has a antique booth boot camp course, which is just very, very cool. So definitely chime into that. And thank you guys. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for accommodating my schedule.
Oh, yes. Fine.
Appreciate it. Bye.
Bye.